In our new one-hour episode, we explore hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, floods, storms, and all sorts of incredible phenomena that will definitely blow your mind. You're watching Eternity Lab, the laboratory of eternally relevant content. Frankfurt in Germany, the fifth most populous city and one of the largest global business centers. Naturally, Frankfurt has a strong flow of money. However, in August 2023, there was simply a lot of water. Heavy rains in southern Germany led to the flooding of hundreds of basements and streets. But besides ground floors, the murky water also flooded metro stations, and Frankfurt International Airport became quite scary. Dozens of flights were canceled after the airfield was flooded, and many passengers found themselves in a difficult situation. This was not the first time that flooding had penetrated the subway. Here we see how subway train cars turned into aquariums in July 2021. In this case, the cost of the damage amounted to 1.5 billion euros. On August 7, 2023, residents of southern and eastern Norway received a frightening notification. The Norwegian Meteorological Institute issued a red warning of danger due to the approaching storm, Hans. Exceptionally heavy rains became record-breaking for the past 25 years, causing entire towns to be evacuated. The relentless rain poured for days, and in the midst of the storm, the dam on the Glomma River burst. As a result, a wave of water caused landslides and catastrophic flooding that swept away several houses. The disaster occurred at the beginning of August, but already in July, the monthly rainfall was 300% above the average historical indicators. In the first 10 days, Storm Hans wreaked havoc across Europe, flooding several towns, tearing off roofs of houses, and causing massive destruction. Ironically, these events happened after a series of devastating wildfires across northern Europe. Where was all this water at the beginning of the summer when it was so badly needed? Genoa, an ancient port and the capital of the Liguria region, is the sixth largest city in Italy, stretching along the Italian Riviera. Its trade importance for the Mediterranean is hard to overestimate. It is the busiest port in Italy, and therefore the fury of the water element is extremely unfavorable for it. Storms and flash floods cause enormous damage to the economy of Europe as a whole. Genoa suffered especially badly during a series of floods in 2011. When tropical storms hit the Mediterranean, these shots were taken on November 4th on the streets of the city. We can only be horrified by how powerful the flood can be and be glad that we were in another place. Genoa was not alone in this battle. More than 20 inches of rainfall fell across the lagoon up to Tuscany, and this water quickly engulfed rivers and canals, leading to the flooding of cities. When the water finally receded, the streets of Genoa were left covered with mangled and overturned cars. The bridge over the Pellice stream collapsed, and several people in the port were trapped under the rubble. Everything around was filled with mud and debris, and these shots went around the world, showing how a city can be transformed in a matter of minutes.
This rescue worker says they're doing their best to check drains, etc., so the land can absorb as much water as possible.
In mid-August 2021, Turkey experienced a sudden flood. The small town of Bozkurt, with a population of about 5,000 people, was built around the banks of a river just a few miles from the Black Sea coast. This flood became a powerful chord in a series of disasters that hit the world that summer. Heat waves raged in Italy and Russia. Floods ravaged Belgium and Germany. Not to mention the pandemic that continued to disrupt everyone's plans. Turkish weather stations recorded that around 16 inches of rainfall fell within 48 hours. Additionally, the town is located downstream, making it an easy target for mudslides that rushed down the mountains at a furious speed. The embankment managed to hold back the onslaught for a while, but the force of nature proved unstoppable. All this muddy water quickly burst its banks, and the river level rose by almost 13 feet. Cars were dragged along the road, ground floor homes were flooded, and the entire town was so thoroughly destroyed that it is impossible to describe. 300 surrounding villages were left without electricity, and a thick layer of mud covered a vast area. The summer of 2023 was unlike any other when it comes to floods in China. Monsoons, typhoons, and torrential rains hit the country. On July 29th, due to the super typhoon Doksuri, a record amount of rainfall fell in 16 provinces, and the highest level of danger was declared. In Beijing, the heaviest rains in the past 140 years were recorded.
The cars parked on the street were floating and got washed away. A couple of vehicles parked behind my apartment disappeared in minutes.
Have you ever seen rain that does not stop for days? It is amazing to watch cars floating down the river like toy ducks in a bathtub. In some shots, it is hard to tell where the river ends and the road begins. More than 60 billion cubic feet of water buried the city's infrastructure. The flood affected at least 1.5 million people, with agricultural land suffering the most. Economic losses exceeded $13.2 billion, making Typhoon Doksuri one of the costliest natural disasters in China's history. Officials stated that it would take a minimum of 2 years to recover, and you do not know where to start such a cleanup. Little Falls, a town in northern New Jersey with just over 13,000 people, is named after a tiny waterfall on the Peckman River. Local residents love to stroll along the waterfront, for which they had to fear in August 2018. Heavy rain hit New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and it did not stop for several days and nights. Roads were flooded, and many drivers were stranded in their cars in the nearby town of Caldwell. In this footage from car dealership owners, we see their money floating away along with new cars.
Holy crap! Oh my God! It's gonna hit! Oh shit! And it's another one coming right behind.
The river plays with them like toy cars. Locals standing on the Route 46 overpass could not believe their eyes. By the end of the show, 16 excellent cars were washed out of the dealership and piled up under the bridge. Chrysler Jeep Dodge overturned and sank, but it was too late to try to save anything. Finally, the storm subsided.
Whoa! Whoa, whoa, look at that! Holy shit! It flipped over! It went under! All the cars from the car lot are coming over!
And tow trucks safely removed the cars, which they even managed to start. But the town was covered in mud and water, and the hearts of car dealers were full of pain. The governor declared a state of emergency in 5 counties as they received a month's worth of rainfall. Moab, a small town in the United States near the Colorado border, is a popular mountain for motorcycle enthusiasts who love to ride on the network of challenging trails near Rock Trail. On July 28, 2021, a severe thunderstorm occurred here. The rain flooded streams flowing from the Colorado River, and water rushed through nearby reservoirs. Traffic on Route 191 was blocked, and a local resident had no choice but to settle near the dried-up riverbed and film this story for us. What you are looking at used to be Dry Creek, flowing from the Colorado River. But the Moab storm brought it back to life surprisingly quickly. The July flood was one of those that happens once in a century. The humidity was measured at 100%. The likelihood of such an event recurring is only 1%, but ironically, another 100-year flood occurred here about a year later. Fortunately, the expanses of the state allow the river to overflow. It is not as dangerous as the streams on the streets of the town. Mandi, a small Indian town in Himachal Pradesh state, located about 87 miles north of the state capital. With a population of over 26,000 people, it is an effectively developing town, but nevertheless it retains much of its historic charm. Unfortunately, part of this charm was severely damaged in July 2023 when a fierce flood hit the region. India is famous for its heavy rains. They are some of the strongest in the world, and water quickly overflows the riverbanks. Since many towns in this province are built near hills and mountain slopes, they suffer greatly from such landslides. Due to the rains, a whole lake formed on top of the hill, and the city authorities warned everyone that a landslide was inevitable. Therefore, people took shelter on higher ground, simply climbing to the upper floors of buildings, and watched as the streams of mud and debris destroyed their shop on the ground level. Naturally, many goods were ruined. This July day became the rainiest in the past 40 years. The town received about 6 inches of rainfall, and Mandi was not alone among the most affected towns. Wrightwood, a small town in California, lies in the San Bernardino Valley at an altitude of about 9,800 feet above sea level in the San Gabriel Mountains, northeast of Los Angeles. Most local residents in the summer mainly worry about forest fires, but at the end of August 2023, they had to worry for a different reason. Hurricane Hilary of the 4th category was registered in 4 states as one of the wettest tropical cyclones in history. On August 20th, Hilary, meanwhile, landed on the Baja Peninsula in Mexico and headed for Wrightwood. A local resident with children watched as her fun turned into a muddy avalanche rushing down the mountain. A few days before Hilary's arrival, the National Hurricane Center issued the first ever tropical storm warning in Southern California. They predicted that in some areas, more than the annual rainfall could fall, forcing 26 million people in 3 states to experience flooding.
Overnight, millions of Americans under alert as Hilary slams the West.
In general, hurricanes in California are extremely rare. The last time before Hilary, a tropical storm occurred, was in September 1939. The currents and waters here are too cold, and the winds do not favor hurricanes. But, as they say, even an old woman has her slip-ups. One of the most terrifying natural disasters in the Indian Himalayas occurred on February 7, 2021, in the mountainous Chamoli district of Uttarakhand state. As a result of a violent outburst of a glacial lake from the mountains, a powerful accumulation of rocks and ice burst from underground and merged 2 rivers. One of them is a tributary of the Ganges, and along these rivers there are many populated areas. The devastating torrent rushed to the lower settlements, destroying everything in its path. The theory of rapid melting of glacial lakes in the Himalayas was quickly disproven according to satellite images. It became evident that a glacier the size of 15 football fields simply broke off from the mountain and fell into the river systems below, wiping out 5 bridges, cutting off access to 13 villages, and killing dozens of people. Despite their malicious intentions, the beginning of a storm can look like a painting worthy of a famous artist. You can't even imagine how this picture will change in just a minute. A mesmerizing sight, a foggy monster extends its tentacles to the ground. These clouds are called shelf clouds and usually precede hurricanes, forming a storm collar. They approach at a furious speed. If you look closely, you can see the outlines of a terrifying monster's face in them. This is what Hurricane Ida looked like in August 2021, the second most intense and destructive after the infamous Katrina. The same Hurricane Ida took down a Ferris wheel in the city. Here, the meaning of the name became clear. It continued to spin and worked like a devil's thresher. Wind speeds during the disaster reached a terrifying 150 miles per hour, and the wheel weighs about 440,000 pounds. Fortunately, there were no passengers on it at that time. When people talk about bad weather, it implies not only rain and wind, but also hail. If the weather is very bad, hail the size of a tennis ball falls. On June 22, 2003 in Nebraska, the largest hail was observed. The ice pieces reached a diameter of up to 7 inches, and there were chunks up to 18.7 inches. They likely stripped all the leaves off the trees.
Oh, yeah. Especially if they're driving.
Another dangerous companion of a storm is lightning. No one knows when and where it might strike. In fact, celestial electricity can hit anything. The climate in the United States is prone to frequent tornado attacks, but every time they practically catch people off guard. People who live on powder kegs near volcanoes or in tornado-prone areas likely have strong nerves and good insurance for their cars and homes, because at such moments it can easily become movable property. The squall wind sweeps everything around, sparing neither roofs, landscaping, nor large trees. The only question is where you will be at that moment, inside or outside, and what to do with the car if the storm catches you on the road. If you know how to behave, share with us in the comments. March 31st, 2023, in the USA, could be called Tornado Day. Tornado outbreaks swept across the country. Just think, 146 of them occurred in one day. Wind gusts reached nearly 168 miles per hour, which corresponds to the average speed of a race car. But this is not a record. The highest number of tornadoes in a day happened before, in 1974 and 2011. I wonder what America looked like from space then. As we already mentioned, tornadoes move at a frantic speed. And although the sight of an approaching vortex makes us watch it with frozen amazement, the best decision is to immediately rush to shelter. Agree, it's safer to watch the raging elements from a reliable shelter. Then you can work on restoring your property. The main thing is that no one gets hurt. Here's an example of a wrong choice. On April 26, 2024, a tornado tore through the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, and the wind speed reached 265 miles per hour. The hurricane broke trees and hurled cars into the sky. A truly terrifying scene, don't you think? This story can serve as an instruction on what not to do during a natural disaster. These people likely panicked or had no previous experience. They thought shelter under an overpass would be safer than their own car. Just know for the future that staying under bridges in such moments, you are dooming yourself to be in a wind tunnel. It's a miracle that no one was injured.
Oh my God.
It's bad news if during a storm you find yourself not only under a bridge but also on it. As you know, there's no turning back or making a turn. You can only go with the flow and hope that the squall wind doesn't flip the car. Being on the road during bad weather is a tough test for the driver. The worst part is that the car seems to protect against flying debris, but completely limits visibility, turning movement into pure lottery. The main thing is not to end up under trees that might fall on the car. The person filming this shows us the beginning of a tornado outbreak that raged in the southern states of the USA from March 21st to 23, 2022. It all started in Texas, and the filming of this movie takes place in the heart of the tornado. Remember what we said about the bridge? This time, a truck experienced the full power of the flow, carrying cars along with debris, and everything ahead sank into complete fog and rain.
Wow. Ooh. It's dying down.
As it turned out, staying in the car is also not entirely safe. This time, the airbags probably worked. One of the most unpleasant moments in hurricanes is the squall wind, which can not only break trees but also uproot them. Yes, it's sad to watch this happening in your yard right before your eyes. It feels like the wind treated them like weeds.
Oh, our tree's gone! We lost 2 trees! Well, our front yard is gone.
The owner's pain will also cost a pretty penny for restoration work. I wonder if putting the tree back will make it grow again.
Oh, damn, I love those trees.
And of course, the last place you'd want to be during a hurricane is in a car on a road where trees are falling. A falling tree can collapse on you at any moment, and if the movement is blocked by cars ahead, there's no chance for maneuver. Here's another story. On March 5th, 2018, in Portugal, wind gusts at 112 miles per hour not only mercilessly uprooted trees but hurled them across areas, causing devastating damage to everything in their path. Fortunately, the light poles stood firm. If century-old trees fall, they can't be put back. It remains to saw and remove them, leaving unharmonious voids in the cozy alley. The only joy is that the wind direction dropped them towards the park and not on the paths and parked cars. And now a selection from the roof-blowing series, Metal Sheets Fly Like Rappers. We see a hurricane in the Netherlands. Not only residential buildings, but larger structures like schools, hospitals, and stadiums were unprepared for the wild wind. Although they seem light in appearance, being nearby an open space is extremely dangerous. A flying metal sheet is essentially a razor blade. Remember this and don't dawdle in bad weather. Look for shelter.
Ja, dat is het dak. Ligt nu op de berg.
Dat is het dak.
Oh, kijk, daar gaat weer. Oh, wat erg.
Oh, gelukkig gaat de wind die kant op.
Oh, niet normaal.
It feels like the storm's goal is to perform a general cleanup of the area. It seems to aim to level your property with the ground. All the owner can do is helplessly watch as his property literally falls apart. Here are a few shots from Ohio, where several homes were destroyed during a storm on May 7th, 2024.
Oh, man!
The largest and most destructive in history are wedge tornadoes. They got this nickname in the unofficial jargon of storm watchers, and it refers to tornadoes that look wider than the distance from the ground to the base of the surrounding clouds. They can span 0.5 miles or even more in width. This type of tornado is what we see in this story. It struck the small town of Mind in Iowa on April 27, 2024. Just look at the scale. The eyewitness watches the flying large chunks with horror and fears that the nearest neighborhood will now turn into them too.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, it's going behind it.
Fortunately, it bypassed these farms, ended up behind them. Nevertheless, the natural disaster destroyed 180 homes. About 600 people were left homeless, not to mention the damage caused to businesses. Tornadoes in America are like a default option, and it's simply amazing how people coexist with the elements that regularly hit one area or another. Meteorologists can predict a storm in general, but not the moment when the elements will cover the city entirely, making movement impossible. Here's proof from Canada. The sky seems bright, but within seconds, the scenario changes dramatically to an apocalyptic film. Observing this is both incredibly scary and fascinatingly interesting. I'm just worried about that driver who didn't manage to find shelter. We don't see the end of the story. Our eyewitness also wisely hid in an apartment. If clouds look like colored cotton candy, bad news, a dust storm is approaching. It often looks like the beginning of the apocalypse. A powerful dust storm in Arizona once left 10,000 people without electricity, which also led to flight delays. Have you seen anything like this in your life? Yes, of course. It's not a tornado, a dust storm won't turn us upside down, but when the wind blows madly, visibility disappears, and the storm stretches for 50 miles. I wouldn't know what to do either. For a driver, the main thing is visibility on the road and a working car. When the road becomes slippery, it turns into an ice rink and a truck becomes a cow on skates. Visibility in a blizzard drops almost to zero, and all you can do is rely on your driving skills. Well, and hope that other drivers will also be careful.
That's so scary.
Canadians are no strangers to situations when a blizzard, wind, and ice play on the same team. Just imagine how a truck driver literally fights the elements. During a winter storm in Alberta, the Trans-Canada Highway became a real challenge for any driver. The road was icy, and the wind was so strong that it blew small cars off the highway, and they stayed off-road for hours. It looks like a whole cemetery of cars accumulated in the ditch. No one can argue. This is really scary. All right, a truck, but I can't imagine a cruise liner anchored being blown away by the wind like a plastic cup. On January 21st, 2020, the MS Nordliner arrived at a border port in Norway. Docking was supposed to go smoothly, but nature decided otherwise. Imagine if the wind parks a ship weighing tens of thousands of tons. What will happen to tiny boats? They will be swept away like papers from a table. Let's see how a waterspout treats boats. In a video shot in Ohio, wind gusts form a waterspout. The wind that day reached 80 miles per hour. It easily scattered equipment on land and began sucking boats from the dock into the vortex. I think it took time to set everything in order. This is not a New Year's firework, but a tornado deciding to walk along the power line. Tornadoes can not only cause serious property damage, but also leave the whole city without power. At the beginning of January 2024, a tornado suddenly hit a residential area in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Eyewitnesses observed the eerie sight from a high-rise window. Green flashes indicate electrical shorts in its path. And the maximum wind speed that day reached 80 miles per hour. Ripping down wires was not enough, and it switched to the dock, where it started smashing and overturning boats. The water foamed instantly. I think being in a high-rise building at that moment was the safest. Thank you for this video, guys.
This is so scary. This is literally my worst fear.
I'm so happy it's going away.
Oh, just flip that boat over!
Oh my god.
Oh, it's gonna run right through this freaking main drag road. It's coming. It flipped that. I think that boat righted itself. That boat was upside down.
Antarctica is considered the only place on Earth where there are no tornadoes, but the icy continent is recognized as the windiest on the planet. Gusts can reach 200 miles per hour. That's racing speed. Combine this with an average temperature of minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit and icy needles that the wind throws at your face, and here's the picture of a storm in Antarctica. The air turns into icy sandpaper. Expedition members have to show extra heroism. All we can do is admire people who have dedicated their lives to such work. And what if they get buried in snow up to their ears? Cyclones often sweep around Antarctica. No wonder planes don't fly over the continent. Landing here is almost impossible due to the strong squall wind. You will see this in the next video. This isn't even the South Pole. The footage was taken at an airport in the Netherlands. Just imagine the force of the airflow that prevented a massive machine weighing several tons from landing. The plane went for a go-around. In fact, the practice of a missed approach is standard in aviation and is denoted by the command TOGA. Takeoff/go-around. Never seen such a heavy machine tossed around by the wind like a butterfly? And while watching this, my palms got sweaty with anxiety. The Drake Passage is the widest and deepest passage on Earth. Its width in the narrowest part reaches 510 miles, and the depth is hopeless, up to 16,000 feet. It connects the southern parts of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, and is considered one of the most difficult navigation routes. Also, it's the stormiest place on the planet, and because of the icebergs, it's called the Sea Everest. To the north of the passage is the archipelago of Tierra del Fuego and the legendary Cape Horn, and on the opposite side lies Antarctica. Here, mad winds and the world's strongest ocean currents, including the powerful Antarctic Circumpolar Current. Historically, the passage gained a notorious reputation as the graveyard of many ships that attempted to pass it against the current since the times of Magellan until the opening of the Panama Canal. Safe navigation here is available only to cargo giants. Panamax tankers and container ships, military cruisers and aircraft carriers, and also submarines. Have you ever felt the roar of the wind over waves several feet high? And people have to endure all this nightmare for over 500 miles. Always check the weather forecast before heading out to open sea. Under the wing of an airplane about something, a lightning discharge crackles. Someone got a convenient place for observation. This is the kind of thing you've probably seen in sci-fi movies before. Well, this is the real deal. When a new bridge is better than an old one, you can remove an obstruction. Sometimes nerves are stronger than building materials. Even in such matters, perfectionism is proof of professionalism. Maybe he enjoys his work so much, first cutting chips and then taking out smooth tubulars, and someone, on the contrary, doesn't sweat it. One little boy didn't get to play with robots, cars, and airplanes, so when he grew up, he became the driver of a giant excavator. Shall we fly? Through the clouds to the landing strip, a fabulous view in good weather. The figure in action is the corkscrew. The wider, the slower, the narrower, the faster. Want to see what Superman's face-to-face flight looks like? Too bad you can't feel that wind, but it's there. The sensation of free flight can't be compared to anything. That's probably why this sport has so many fans. Not everyone prefers the standard parking lot. Some very skiddy people like to skid. A retro car is more than just a body. If the engine is running, the car can go, despite a bit of a mess in the interior. A jewelry shop? Well, almost. It's a completely waste-free auto dismantling shop, where it takes a few minutes per car. The literally gutted body is sent for remelting, and the parts are sent to their destination. Matches and sawdust are made very quickly, literally in one motion. The key is to have a fierce forest harvester. He said, "Let's go," and pressed the trigger. The rocket engine has been successfully tested. However, if everything works properly on the ground, in the air it sometimes behaves differently. There's a tower on the left, a tower on the right, and a Spider-Man truck in between.
For the city, right? And look at this. Big building up there. Big building down here. And what happened, Mr. Drifter? Lost it? Huh? What happened?
You have a chain of events in front of you. To anchor, you must first lay the chain correctly, as acceleration can make movement dangerous. Don't get in its way. When the reverse signal beeps annoyingly, it becomes contagious. If you're really passionate about getting the hook out of the fish, someone wouldn't mind getting something out of you. Maybe this guy's better at fishing tackle and has come out to help. There was a large crocodile crossing the street. I have a feeling no one wants to mess with a pedestrian like that until he decides where to go after all. If there are fish factories, then there must be fish pipelines. One, if your boss doesn't start the morning at the office with this workout, that's the only reason to love him. It doesn't matter where we're going. What matters is who's leading us. Bravely, comrades, keep up. If the drum is on top, it doesn't mean the concert is canceled. The duo performs under any conditions. A large horned load is transported to the farm in a special way, and it's also an attraction.
This is fine.
When it's hot, a Charcot shower is the best treatment. Massage included. Sign up for a session in advance. One stall is open. When the flies are virtual, you can get a spider. Here's where there's more passion than many TV shows. Looks like one of these two didn't spend the night at home. I'm not of that batch, just traveling with them in a crate. You don't come down this road without stopping. You gotta give a patrolman a treat. Seems like this isn't the first time these guys have driven through here and already know what he likes. The bears are kids too and want to ride along with everyone else. Only the company scatters for some reason with the screaming. Look, why do you need a rug in the woods? There's soft grass. Get off, I said, give it back. This is what you might call a seal rookery. or when they say, "There's a pond of them out there." A seal doesn't need fins or a surfboard. All options are built in by default, even communication skills. Unpacking for the new season is total self-care. What if when we took off an old coat, we ate it? It's not a cement mixer and it's not a jet of mud. It's just a big snake had a good lunch and now it's hard to move, which is why it's taking so long. It's not beach volleyball and not pussy and whiskas, but the truest meatball and acrobatics performed by a predator. The excursion is not a whale's tail in the distance, but a real one-on-one meeting. I would have dropped my phone from surprise. Well, the artist may not look presentable, but it's real rock and roll, baby. The sea monster that's coming ashore is actually a huge flock of small fish. It's just that there are so many of them that they've caused the water to turn into a dark mass. Sometimes trees grow on other trees and feel good about themselves. The Polynesian volcano. Hunga Tonga has once again put on a spectacular show. Its eruptions regularly change the contours of an uninhabited island, and the huge wave from its activity has traveled so far that it has been felt by several countries around the world. It's just a whirlpool, nothing to do with witchcraft and no black pearl nearby. And here we have both the black pearl and 21st century pirates. This canoe can easily continue traveling as a submarine. Waterfalls, just a waterfall. Just water, lots of water. Now this is an actual well in California. It's best not to swim near this place. The gravitational force starts sucking anything else hundreds of meters away into the hole. It's not just an obstacle course, but a test. That's how Japanese special agents pass the GTO standards. Simply put, it's a ninja exam. And it looks like this guy passed. And now for the escalator car wash. The key is to set the tone, and foam, gravity, and acceleration will do the work. Another operation of the laws of physics, the law of conservation of body energy. A body that jumped out of a window correctly will return to the window. It's not easy to climb mountain slopes, but you can't do much tumbling there. We rehearse in the pavilion. Now it's clear why climbers train. They will have to do something similar later. So what if it's a tornado? You can get around it. Have you ever seen how rails, sleepers are laid, just where jewelry technique is needed? For some reason, they work with their hands. This is not a caterpillar, but a well-coordinated work of an orchestra of rowers under the control of an experienced conductor. Not even a kite, but a whole dragon was launched from this field. A grand creation. I wonder where it will fly. The cycle of Sambuca in nature revolves around the bartender. One precise movement, and the wheel is started. This is how cargo is delivered by water. A refreshing sea breeze, size, and a slight rocking motion are the constant companions of cargo ships. A useful thing to know about cyclones is that they can produce tsunami-like shockwaves of frightening size. We are now seeing similar footage captured in India. Sometimes the waves soar so high that they produce the illusion of clouds. Do you think these SUVs were washed in this original way? Otherwise, how they ended up in the abundant foam any versions? Who knows what kind of joke the ocean will pull? Today it gave out a batch of some dirty and sticky snow. They must have had a seasonal general cleanup inside there. You can watch this show endlessly. The edge of the wave seems to be illuminated with fluorescent ribbons. This is the merit of plankton, which in the darkness acquires neon reflections. Beautiful, isn't it? Interesting effect when water and water are two big differences, and they take their time to mix, reminiscent of Czech cut beer. Water is a tenacious and insidious element. It only pretends to be soft. Watch it playfully roll up metal. And these houses decided to move to a new place, but for some reason they set off at night. It's just amazing how slow the drivers are. Did they all agree not to look in their mirrors? Drove, but didn't have time. The bridge was swept right out from under my feet. Those who build a house over the river are wise. When the time comes to tear it down, the river will do it for you quickly, accurately, and for free. You can make a movie too. That's how easily a whole bus got sucked into a quagmire of mud. Good thing it was empty. For comparison, this is a waterfall in Indonesia. And this, folks, is a mudslide in Indonesia. The real wonderland is now before us in all its glory. This is what the fall of the king looks like, the epic plunge of an iceberg into the abyss. You and I get the soundtrack, and eyewitnesses get the actual cracking of a huge ice floe. And separated, as in the sea, glaciers. Tourists in Greenland are sometimes shown an iceberg show. An ice block decided to crack right in front of their eyes. Now we know how the multi-ton ice crackles when parting. When a glacier splits, it can get wacky. A huge water float either creates a surf wave or a whirlpool. It's better to scream with delight and get away in time than to scream with fear when the boat flips over. Nepal is a mountainous country, and avalanches are part of the living conditions here. But tourists need to know the code. See an avalanche coming and run is right. See and stay to film is wrong. See an avalanche, pray, and film is wrong. Running fast and praying is the most correct answer. Nature has no half measures. All portions are XXL size. We watch a glacier descend beautifully and majestically into a lake. When spring arrives, birds sing, flowers bloom, streams run, and mountain peaks dump tons of melted snow and mud down. You've just arrived in the Himalayas, set up camp, built a fire, and pulled out your guitar. And lo and behold, there's an ominous avalanche creeping up on you. Yeah, guys, get your feet out of the way. In a few minutes, it will be putting out your campfire. When the water is colder than the air, white lambs can form on the ice crust. The phenomenon is rare, but very pretty. When the current of a river forms a centrifugal motion, in cold weather, the ice solidifies into a perfect circle and shows us the disk of the moon on the surface of the river. These gingerbread houses are not decorations for Christmas, but the mischief of an ice storm in Canada. When you live near Ontario, you can get trapped in an ice storm. Icicles can be found under roofs, on rocks, and under the ice crust of a lake in Antarctica. Amazing! If they don't melt, then the water is also icy. The question then is, why is a diver swimming there? And now we are not driving, but on the contrary, the snowstorm is coming at us. It is a deceptive optical effect, so strong wind and snowfall in the face. An amazing phenomenon of nature. A fountain that releases a geyser. Iceland is a fantastic country that will amaze you with its views. We don't know how long our cameraman waited, but he achieved the result. The geyser is alive. Probably if Baba Yaga opened a fast food business, she would cook her prey in a kitchen like this. A mud volcano is a cloaca. An Indonesian volcano called Fire Mountain is trying to live up to its name, but so far it looks like a giant smoking ashtray. There are avenues of lava in the world. For example, an active volcano in Ethiopia shows us its riches. The incredible power and beauty of a glowing lava river moves towards us. Would you dare to stand close? When Hawaii's volcanic eruption ends and the lava cools down, new attractions are ready for tourists. Come and admire the fresh stucco. This is not a computer effect, but real blue lava. The color is so bright because the lava contains sulfur, because the lava has sulfur in it. This is probably the most beautiful eruption in the world, which can be seen at the Kawah Ijen volcano in Indonesia. Probably the most mesmerizing and inexplicable sight on the planet is the northern or polar lights, when colored sparks of fantastic hues play in the sky. Here I would put on some music, a warm tent, and sit there all night. A very rare but mesmerizing sight, a rainbow that lives in a cloud. This effect is produced when the storm front is very high and the sun's rays are refracted by the clouds. This is what happens when the thunderstorm isn't over, the sun hasn't set yet, and the rainbow is already out. There's nothing to say. It's a sight to behold. Whoever finds the end of the rainbow catches good luck by the tail. It's just a little thing left to catch.
Mom, I found the end of the rainbow!
When one of these is looming over your town, it's tempting to think that evil witchcraft is real, and the very name of such layered rain clouds, nimbostratus, sounds like an incantation. The ominous whirling of such a spiral sausage in the sky does not bode well. Appreciate the speed of this Yule. When a cloud in the shape of a huge eel floats across the sky, there's obviously a lot of electricity in it. This footage was captured in Australia. This is what an approaching thunderstorm front looks like. A drone has captured footage of an avalanche of clouds enveloping the tops of picturesque hills, and it's stunning. A fistula has formed in the cloud from which a mini tornado siphons. The kids are laughing because it seems to them the cloud has decided to play a joke. Sometimes nature shows all the tricks at once. Here you have a sunset, storm clouds, and a rainbow in one sky. Choose which view to enjoy. One moon, two moons. Wait, is this a prank? The rain cloud moved so fast that the cameraman didn't have a chance to film the story to the end. He managed to save his phone. In a good scenario, the apocalypse should start like this. But this time, apparently, there was just a rehearsal.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And now we're seeing what the exact fulfillment of the 50% rain weather forecast looks like. If the garbage cans decided to get together, they probably have a backlog of issues. It's pointless to try to stop them. They've been waiting a long time for the right weather to establish a union. An ominous, rare, and mesmerizing scene. Lightning inside a thundercloud. It's extravagant! They also say that lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. Not only does it strike, but it sticks to it. Can someone explain why tornadoes are so fond of traveling along roads? It seems like it's more convenient for them to travel along highways too. The sight of that mushroom cloud alone gives you goosebumps, not to mention the tornado's trunk peeking out of it. Now imagine what it was like for those who filmed it. It's amazing what makes people stop on the road and film such horrors instead of speeding past the danger. After all, you can't win a tornado race with a car. On this clear day in Colorado, there were no hurricane warnings, and here it is. Just look at the power. Just watching, just marveling. Monumental and powerful. Tornadoes are better watched on a screen than in person. The witchcraft in the field is not the work of the village fairy. It's a dry tornado, a mini tornado swirling over dry patches of land. This is what chaos looks like. It's unclear what's going on around you, and there's no chance to get an outside view. Rain is a grace to nature, until lightning sizzles into your favorite palm tree. Admire the power of the wind. It feels like the tree is a newly planted flower that is not rooted well. I wonder what those guys who ran up to it wanted to do. Put it back in its place. If you don't close a window in time in hurricane winds, you can't close it anymore. When the rains get under the tail and the spark gets the fuel and a tornado is still at hand, it looks scary! What if it goes for a walk? A sandstorm is fast, scary, and very dense. Imagine the second you couldn't breathe, couldn't see anything, and a hell of a lot of noise all around you. This cloud appears white, but inside it is dust and sand. Can you hear it hissing? The Earth bends like plasticine. If the surface is walking around like this during an earthquake, what is being done in the layers below? Whoops, we're going. A whole layer of land, along with trees, can move quite independently. It's called a landslide. India and landslide are almost synonymous. This is how a section of highway is buried underneath in a matter of seconds. It's a good thing no one was hurt, but the detour will take another half a day. It's good to shoot a massive landslide from a safe distance, but sooner or later the dust and wind will reach you, so find your escape route first. Never say, "Am I going to get torn up now?" This tree has apparently repeated the saying one too many times. And now we have the aftermath before us. The ocean knows how to pave too. 1. The Earth is definitely alive. It breathes, grunts, and gurgles like it has a runny nose and a little cough. The Earth sometimes looks like a green dishwashing sponge. There seems to be a buildup of foam inside, and the bog is chiming. Nature has no meaningless creations. If this pebble has a button attached to it, it must be for something. This huge stone egg seems to be mocking us. It's not happy about being dug up and disturbed. A strange living cloud is flying very fast and low over the ground, for it is not a cloud, but an untold number of birds. If you can call them a swarm, that's what it is. This is not just a big nest, but a whole bird commune. At least 500 birds live in this structure. What if they all sang at the same time, drowning out the sound of Niagara Falls? The pelican is a proud bird with good reactions, but if lunch jumps into your mouth, it's a sin not to accept such a gift. Either our brains are inclined to adjust everything to a pattern, or indeed, birds fly in a horizontal straight line, using the built-in magnetic navigation system. Some technological accidents, combined with natural forces, are so insane that it's hard to believe they are real. Imagine this. In the Polish port city of Gdansk, powerful winds pushed a massive crane structure. Gusts literally sent it sliding down the tracks into the water. Quite an impressive fall, right? There comes a moment when we realize how fragile our civilization is compared to the power of nature. Hail is a common phenomenon, but not when it's too big. Otherwise, rain turns into a natural disaster. Interestingly, in ancient times, people believed that loud sounds could stop a storm, so they would fire cannons when a hailstorm was approaching. We do not know if it helped. This is why it's best not to take chances and stay indoors when the weather is really bad. A sudden gust of wind can change your plans en route. This video will truly allow you to feel the full force of Hurricane Ida, which struck the state of Louisiana in 2021.
We're getting close to the eye right now. We're starting to lose all the roofs. It's unbelievable.
A brave eyewitness still finds the strength to comment on the filming, even as his own property is ready to fly away.
You got this tractor trailer that's coming. Tractor trailer right here. Oh!
Right now, roofs are beginning to be torn off houses. It is incredible how powerful the wind is. It flips containers like cardboard. There is no real way to prepare for such a squall. This wind only intensifies. According to meteorologists, the hurricane's speed reached over 140 miles per hour. Just imagine what it is capable of carrying away. I hope that guy was sheltered under a sturdy structure. Now we understand where the rumors about UFO beams came from. Just watch this lightning show. The energy of a single lightning bolt is enough to boil a pond or shatter an entire tree into splinters in seconds. This stunning fiery rainbow is a rare type of refraction of sunlight when flat hexagonal ice crystals align horizontally in a cloud. Who would argue, isn't nature the greatest artist? After a storm, nature sometimes rewards us with amazing gifts, a rainbow that almost seems close enough to touch. We see a massive sandstorm approaching the city of Aswan in Egypt. These epic storms can carry millions of tons of sand and fine dust particles. This is how they travel across oceans from the Sahara to the Caribbean Sea. The best sign that winter is ending is when the ice cracks and the frozen river comes to life. Poetic, but incredibly uncomfortable. Every spring, nature puts on a spectacular show called the Ice Breakup in Illinois. The entire flow solemnly floats down the river. Even when the ice cracks and melts, the thickness of the ice floes can still exceed 6 inches. Here, you can see the dramatic break of the Perito Moreno Glacier in Argentina. One of the most inspiring sights does not necessarily mean that everything is fine with our climate. Either the avalanche had a carefully planned agenda, or that vehicle has a lucky number.
This is fine.
An avalanche is relentlessly approaching, and we realize that the landscape was designed by nature specifically for it, not for a picturesque view from a cabin. The apocalypse can arrive in this way too. We observe an avalanche in the Alps. Its speed can reach more than 65 feet per second and carry hundreds of thousands of tons of weight. That is why avalanche-prone areas are constantly monitored by specialized organizations like the American Avalanche Association. I think if the eruption of a volcano were predicted to the exact day, tickets to this show could be sold for a high price. All the nearby hotels would turn into observation decks. What starts with smoke ends with fire, as it should. Some of Earth's most majestic and powerful shows are volcanic eruptions. Of course, it's better to watch them from a respectful distance.
On the street. This is the road to the Blue Lagoon. And the new lava will flow over the road. Look at that. And they rebuild it. They rebuild a new road. At the road to the Blue Lagoon.
And then comes the time to observe the aftermath. The sight is shocking. It's not ice, but lava that can turn a landscape into a barren desert. Roads have been buried and the lava is still smoldering. It is such a shame that nature decided to spend all that potential asphalt on destroying roads instead of building highways. Waves. One can endlessly watch the waves of the Atlantic Ocean crashing against the shores of Portugal. This breathtakingly beautiful place is also known as the Devil's Mouth. When a flood occurs in a Russian metropolis, it's not a reason to stop public transportation.
Вообще похую.
Southern Spain is known for its dryness, but a random storm can turn the streets into raging rivers. Mountain rivers in Switzerland are known for their wild temperament during floods, so their banks are reinforced with stone barriers in case the current brings an uncontrollable pile of logs. The same anomaly occurred on a river in the famous Swiss valley of Emmental. The cause of the torrential flow was a sudden change in the weather. First, there was a long drought, and the riverbed dried up, and then heavy rains came, and all the logs, branches, and debris that the water could carry from the river bottom were swept away at once. This is why living right by a river is dangerous. Just because there hasn't been a flood in 100 years does not mean it won't happen today. When a storm with hail causes a flood, summer turns into a hellish winter, and roads have to be cleared with shovels again. This is one of those cases where you really have to choose a different route. Heavy rain in North Carolina completely washed away a section of the road that was 40 feet long. Over 4 inches of rain fell in a short time, and local rivers began to overflow. They started by flooding beaver dams and then broke through a network of drainage pipes, triggering a chain reaction. And so an innocent stream turned into a powerful torrent that ate up part of the road like a piece of cake. Landslides. Landslides are some of the most dangerous and unpredictable events in mountainous areas. The scariest thing about landslides is the uncertainty. You never know when and where they will stop. Builders became witnesses to a powerful mudflow. Usually, working in an area with a difficult landscape involves many risks. Usually, in movies, creepy creatures emerge from places like this. Shall we wait a little longer? Hardangervidda is a mountain plateau in western Norway, the largest high mountain plateau in Europe, reaching up to 5,240 feet above sea level. It is home to a national park with incredibly beautiful views. But when the mountains become restless, a rock fall from the summit can turn into a real stone bombardment. Plants. Plants also demonstrate the power of Mother Earth. This is one of those cases where nature quickly takes over abandoned things. Any empty space is filled with life. It's a mystery how this tree survived. It has almost lost its connection to its roots. And this hanging tree does not even touch the ground. Apparently, it is sustained spiritually. It is a heartbreaking sight to see how ancient and mighty olive trees are consumed from within by fire. They were set on fire deliberately for a good cause because the entire olive plantation was threatened by a bacteria nicknamed the olive grove killer. In Italy alone, millions of trees could die due to the infection. The strain quickly spreads through insects that carry the virus from one tree to another. If a tree is already infected, it must be destroyed along with neighboring groups. Catch a big fish or a small one, or a lot of little ones. Oh, thank you. A fish can end up on the shore for various reasons. For example, dolphins sometimes drive schools of fish into shallow water, and strong currents can suddenly throw the whole school ashore with a wave. An incredible spectacle performed by humpback whales, but this is just their unique way of feeding. They create underwater nets of air bubbles, and these spirals, rising to the surface, surround schools of fish, providing the whales with plenty of easy prey in one place. This way, they do not waste time assembling large portions. Plus, whales execute complex tasks in a team approach. They are truly efficient hunters. Abundant food means survival for them, as their stomachs can hold anywhere from 10 to 1,300 pounds of food. This amazing effect is not caused by a natural phenomenon, but by microorganisms. Thanks to the bioluminescent properties of plankton, we find ourselves in a fantastic world. The glowing sea takes your breath away, and the glow is alive. The size of the plankton is less than 1/4 of an inch, but these tiny lights shine brightly when something disturbs them. The waves of the surf or a touch. Excellent psychotherapy, right? It turns out that the legends of dragons are pure truth. Only over time, the monsters have shrunk.
Wow! Whee! Fantastic!
It's amazing how nature built coordination into birds. When a flock gathers in a tree, you do not expect such a fountain of emotions. Scientists believe that this is how migration begins. Someone has to signal, and this tree apparently serves as a meeting point.
Wow! Short fit, but a sweet fit. Peace.
This is not a ball of butterflies, but a bat party. Before their night hunt, they circle in front of their daytime refuge, seemingly waiting for the latecomers to all embark together on a fearsome Valkyrie flight. Imagine being inside that cave at dusk when they wake up. The owner of this car needs a personal weather forecast. If in northern countries fishing championships are organized on ice in winter, then in Asia, they have to conduct a peculiar regatta in muddy water.
Don't know, but there's a hole, and all the water's draining into it.
This lake in Oregon is called Lost Lake. Indeed, you could not think of a better name. It is located in a natural park near Mount Jefferson, and every year this body of water undergoes a remarkable transformation. Winter streams turn it into a full-fledged lake, but in the spring, almost all the water drains through a 2-foot-wide hole, essentially causing the lake to disappear. The reason for this is a unique area formed by ancient volcanoes. Beneath the lake is a network of channels known as lava tubes. When there is a lot of water, these tubes fill up and maintain the water level. But once the streams stop feeding the lake, all the water drains into this natural drain.
Lost Lake, Oregon. About an hour and 15 minutes from Salem, Oregon. Worth the adventure. Great place.
You can see such whirlpools during tidal floods. The wave begins to swirl because waters with different characteristics mix. This is not ice or snow, but deposits of sea salt. A real burn is when everything melts, not metaphorically, but like cheese in a frying pan. In such weather, it would be perfect for grilling steaks without a fire. Why don't we use solar energy to its full potential? And that's all for today. Write the keyword rocket in the comments so I'll know you watched until the very end. Stay tuned to Eternity Lab, the laboratory of eternally relevant content.